frozen funds continue to work for Ukraine's benefits. That is why we recently proposed reparation loan backed by frozen Russian assets is so important to us. It provides a lawful and sustainable way to finance Ukraine's needs. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, colleagues, let me once again express my gratitude to Secretary Healey and Minister Pistorius for organizing this UDCG meeting. Thank you. Thank you, partners, for stepping up your support. Peace in Ukraine must be just, lasting, and protected by international unity. Together, we are working to achieve it in shortest way. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the statements. Now we have time for a couple of questions. Mr. Johnny Beale from BBC.
Thank you. If I could ask Defence Secretary Healey, first of all, sorry, Jonathan Beale, BBC. If I could ask you, sir, first of all, I think the Secretary-General said that at the start of today's meeting, 6 NATO countries were going to join the Pearl Initiative, which is essentially Europe buying US military weapons to supply to Ukraine. That's grown to, I think, he said, 16 countries. But the UK isn't one of those countries. Now, Pete Hegseth, the US Defence Secretary, has described countries that aren't going to do that as freeloaders, or indicated they are freeloaders. So I just wanted to know, I'm not aware that the UK is part of that initiative. Are you going to be taking part in that initiative? I could ask Ukraine's Defence Minister, you've no doubt met with Pete Hegseth. Are you any clearer as to whether the US is ready to supply Ukraine with Tomahawk cruise missiles? You made clear in your opening remarks that you wanted long-range weapons, and you made clear which weapons those are. Those are Tomahawk cruise missiles. Did you get any indication from the US that they are ready to supply those weapons? And finally, if I could ask you, Minister Pistorius, do you sense a change in rhetoric of the US? Do you think that, you know, given where we were at the start with the first meeting with Defence Secretary Hegseth, where he was making clear that this was Europe's problem, that the US is now in a different place? And I think he said, Pete Hegseth, the US is ready to impose costs on Russia for its continued aggression. If we must take this step, the US stands ready to do our part that only the US can do. So do you think there has been a change? Thank you.
Thank you. Shall I go first?
Please, go ahead.
Pearl is one way of Ukraine's strongest allies helping to meet their military needs. We in the UK are looking hard at the Pearl programme. We're looking hard at that with other European nations and nations beyond Europe. But we as a country are spending more on military aid to support Ukraine this year than ever before. We are meeting the requirements that Ukraine has said to us they need, and we, in many cases, are doing things that only the UK is doing and funding.
So are you going to join the Pearl scheme?
We're looking at the potential for the Pearl scheme. We're looking hard at that as a new mechanism, and we're looking at that with other European allies and nations within the UDCG beyond Europe. But we are, this year, spending the highest level of British military support on aid for Ukraine at £4.5 billion.
So we discussed today successful results of deep strike operations, which Ukraine provide by our own drones, deep strike drones, and actually we count that we destroyed 20% of refineries on Russian territory, and it brings them to the deficit of gas and gasoline on their gasoline stations. We may see the lines of cars there in Russia, and we will continue such operations. It's absolutely operations in the deep of territory of Russia, directed against of the refineries, against of the infrastructure, military infrastructure, which brings additional money and brings logistics to support war in Ukraine. So it's very, I would say, humanity operations, because we are very precise in our operations and very carefully looks and plan these operations. But it's not enough to create pressure on Russia to stop this war, to bring Putin to the negotiation table. We need to do more, and it should be like a combination of sanctions, of deep strike attacks, of pressure on the front line. So deep strike attacks should be combined with deep strike weaponry, missiles of our partners. We discuss all types of deep strike missiles, but I think that concrete names and concrete data will announce presidents. So President of Ukraine and President of United States answering your question, or leaders of other countries, if it will be other partners who will supply to Ukraine deep strike missiles for our operations to continue and increase pressure on Russia. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I think the baseline of the remarks of Pete Hegseth remains the same since the beginning in February, but still I heard, as you did, these last words of his sentence with very much interest and attention too. And I would read in that kind of change of perspective and approach, but not more for the moment. I can't interpret really what he did mean.
Thomas Gutschka, FAZ.
Thanks a lot for the question. First one to Minister Pistorius. We've heard before from Secretary General Rutte today that altogether 17 allies are now willing to contribute to the Pearl initiative. So far, $2 billion US dollars have been committed. Can you give us an idea of the approximate amount of additional commitments done today? And a question to Minister Šmihal. When you sum up your requirements and your priorities under this program, what is the overall scope, let's say, on the basis of 12 months? I've heard US Ambassador to NATO Whitaker say yesterday it's approximately 10 billion euros, but or US dollars certainly. I'd just like to check that with you. Thank you.
If I understood it correctly, we are talking about 3 billion euros left to be booked by member states, by partners and allies from Pearl. I don't know more. I don't know a total amount about that. Until the end of the year. That's what I assumed this afternoon, John. Am I correct?
Look, this is a new arrangement, and it's still bedding in with the details. I think you will be able to check that out with the Secretary General. He's keeping a very close eye on the commitments that are made.
So let me explain the situation. You asked me about scope, as I understand, if I understand correct. So economy of war. Russia spent for financing of their military goals about $150 billion per year. Economy of war demonstrates if you spend less, you begin to pay by lives and by territories. So you need to hold this balance of economy of war. So as a minimum, we need to spend $120 billion for the 2026. In scope of 12 months, it will mean that this year, for example, we estimate that we will spend $108 billion. And it means that next year, 120, it's a minimum requirement. As a country, Ukraine may cover only half of this amount. 60 billions we may collect as a taxes, and every dollar from our taxes we direct to cover these defense expenses. So other amount we need to collect together with partners. So we need to fundraise this money, and it will be divided for Pearl project, for European producers to produce European types of weaponry, and for Ukrainian producers to produce Ukrainian drones and Ukrainian weaponry. So in which proportions we will calculate for the next year, but the scope of needs, of financial needs, is actually so as I explained.
Sergei Sidorenko from European Pravda.
Sergei Sidorenko. I have two questions, if I may. One is about, let's say, a change in perception of Ukraine by our partners. Do you see that Ukraine is perceived as a contributor in pan-European security after attack on Poland? And because to me it is important, as a contributor to European security should have a place in NATO. How do you see that? And regarding Pearl, that is, first of all, to our Prime Minister. До речі, з днем народження, Денис Анатолійович. I just wished a good birthday to our, sorry, Minister of Defense, still Prime Minister in my memory. So how do you see, what would be an evolution of Pearl next year? Because we see that now it is planned for this year. Would it be continued? Would it be expanded? Would it be like just the same next year? Thank you.
I think that maybe first half of the question to our friends, and the second half I will explain, if I may. So, please.
Shall I go first? The first half, the simple answer to your first question is yes. When I argue that a secure Europe requires a strong sovereign Ukraine, what Ukraine is teaching us in the way that we can see the rapid evolution of the nature of warfare, the leading edge innovation that Ukraine and battlefield techniques, for some time we have been able to learn from Ukraine, and Ukraine is increasingly recognized and understood to play a part in the training of other NATO nations' forces and in recent moves to respond to incursions into NATO airspace. Ukraine has stepped up, responded in practice, and I think is helping to demonstrate more clearly to more people how the Ukraine is fighting for its future, but the unique leading combat experience that it now has means that it can already and will in the future make a huge contribution to the security of Europe more generally.
I couldn't agree more.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this high estimation. We really are ready to share our experience with our partners, with our friends and neighbors, with Europe. Unfortunately, we paid for this experience by lives of our soldiers, of our civilians, our children, but this experience is absolutely unique, and we understand that we need to share it with our friends, just to resist to Russian aggression, to aggression of maybe the group of countries in future. So this is the way which we should go together. The second half of the question about Pearl next year. The Pearl is a unique project initiated by NATO Secretary General, supported by our friends and partners. We are grateful for this. There is some kind of weaponry and munition which is produced just in the United States. Ballistic missiles could be destroyed only by Patriots, by PAC-3 missiles, which are produced in the United States. Long-range artillery munition is now on the stocks only in the United States, so we need to have this weaponry, these munitions right now on the battlefield, and because of this we need to ask United States to supply it, and we are so much grateful and appreciate this initiative and support of European partners for buying of this equipment and weaponry. I'm not sure that next year we will change situation dramatically and increase production here in European member states or there in Ukraine. We will still need to cooperate with the United States, so I'm sure that Pearl project will continue. I believe that it will be modernized in so-named mega deal, where we will very precisely, very clearly note and make list of weaponry which Ukraine needs in case of continuation of such scale of war. We will discuss this with our allies, together with our friends, with Europeans, and we will discuss this with United States. And I'm sure that on the level of our presidents, this, I mean, President of Ukraine, President of United States, this agreement will be reached, and there will be everything what Ukraine needs. And then we will look for the sources, what will finance Ukraine, what will support to finance our partners, European Union, European nations, non-European allies. And then now we are discussing how may we use frozen Russian assets. So we understand that there should be three ways. If we use frozen Russian assets, there should be amount which will be directed for the European allies, some part for Ukrainian producers, and some part for co-financing of Pearl in continuation in mega deal version of the Pearl next year. So I think that that's all what I can comment.
I got a sign that time has run out, so we have only time for one last final question, and that goes to Dan Michaels from Wall Street Journal.
Thank you. Dan Michaels, Wall Street Journal. Could each of you speak very briefly about the significance of the growing industrial production in Europe? For example, Secretary Healey, Britain is producing these octopus interceptors. How important is this also for Ukraine to get the additional production, but also the know-how for Western Europe? Thank you.
I think both Ukraine and the UK, and the new agreement that Boris has signed today demonstrates that we see, first of all, a support for the Ukrainian industry as an important direct way of supporting the Ukrainian warfighting effort. But this is also a way that we can combine, in the case of Octopus, it's a way of combining the innovation from Ukraine, the combat experience directly from the battlefield, with the modern design and mass manufacturing techniques that we can bring to bear from Great Britain. And in that way, we can supply at high volume the weaponry that Ukraine needs. We can also gear Ukrainian industry and Ukrainian companies to be able to service the Western market at the point of peace. And so that this is a way that we forge a closer relationship, but we also put the foundations in for the future beyond the fight for the point of peace.
No, I fully agree. It's about creating a win-win situation. I mean, producing jointly, mutually in Germany, in UK, together with Ukraine defense industry is something we all benefit from. It is about using the experiences and learning from the experience of the Ukrainian armed forces and the Ukrainian defense industry on the battlefield, and all what they do learn there, we can learn by them. So this is just about creating more security for Europe in the years to come. So this is about a real cooperation for the future.
Thank you so much. And two initiatives, built in Ukraine and built with Ukraine, which President of Ukraine initiated. So actually it means that in first case, built in Ukraine, means that you may immediately test everything on the testing fields, on the ground. Unfortunately, we have a war, and you may implement immediately all the innovations from the ground. This is one benefit from this approach. And built with Ukraine, it means that conditions are absolutely more secure in our partner states. We may produce all needed volumes. It differentiates the risks that Russians will destroy something on the Ukrainian territory, production facilities, I mean. And it means that we together will implement innovations with which partners has. As Secretary Healey explained, we may modernize our interceptor drones with new technologies and also increase the capacity of this type of interceptors and weaponry. For example, there are different directions where we may cooperate. So, and we have different examples. We have German companies which are ready to invest and are investing there in Ukraine for repairment facilities, for production facilities. We also have very good examples when Ukrainian producers go to the European countries there on the European continent for production of weaponry in more secure conditions. So both approaches has benefits, and we implement both approaches.
Thank you very much for being
Michael,
here.
just a second. I just realized that we didn't give a female journalist the opportunity for a question, so maybe we should do that.
So, do you want to ask your question? The microphone is coming.
Yeah, hello, my name is Katerina. I'm from Kyiv Post. Tell me, please, what are the 3K needs for Ukrainian armed forces today that was discussed after today's meeting, and how our partners react on this request? Thank you.
So, three main priorities: FPV drones for the front line, and FPV ISR drones to hold the front line. This is number one priority. It's existential priority. The second priority is interceptors, drones and missiles. We ask partners for finances for producing of the drone interceptors, and Secretary Healey announced that we will produce one of the type of these interceptors together, and plus missiles to intercept ballistic missiles, cruise missiles. So we ask it from partners from Europe and from United States. And the third priority is a deep strike. And again, finances for the production of the Ukrainian deep strike drones. And the second direction in deep strikes, this is missile for deep strikes, and we discussed this. You may name it's very famous names. We ask for all of this, and why we ask this? For precise, more massive hits on Russian military infrastructure and on Russian refineries, just to continue pressure on them. So this is three main priorities which are absolutely natural, and we discuss this with our partners, and we are grateful partners. Take it into attention very, very carefully. Thank you for this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
I didn't get it.
Thank you.
I didn't get it.
dazu nochmal, weil das sind ja ein paar der Leute im Raum. Genau. Wäre eine Möglichkeit, hier ist der Hammer und am Ende schiebst du den Hammer zurück.
Ja, am Ende der Sitzung.
Ganz am Ende, weil er schließt dann die Sitzung bei den Closing Remarks.
From the beginning. Never a doubt.
So, Dennis, John, Pete, Mark, my friends, in the first place, I would like to congratulate to our friend and partner, Dennis, to his 5th anniversary. Congratulations and all the best for you and for the years to come, and for good cooperation and steady health. Welcome once again to the 31st UDCG meeting. Mark, thank you very much for your hospitality again, your constant support, and for the reception at NATO headquarters. We continue to see a Russia with no discernible intention of bringing this war to an end. Even if Russia has gained some territory, it has paid dearly with enormous losses. An estimated 300,000 Russian casualties since the start of the year is a horrible price for this inhumane and illegal war of aggression. At the same time, we are seeing the brave Ukrainian defenders noticeably delay movements along the front lines. Moscow tries to mask its failures by terrorizing Ukrainian cities with massive air raids and provoking NATO with airspace violations. My friends, we should not allow ourselves to be sidetracked, and we must maintain a clear perspective. Current developments on the battlefield in Ukraine must strengthen, and we must maintain a clear perspective. Current developments on the battlefield must strengthen our resolve to continue our support for Ukraine. These developments show that Ukraine is successfully defending itself. They show that our support is making a difference. Two factors are important for the continued success of our support. Firstly, we must continue to act in a coordinated, unified and systematic way. Second, we must develop innovative ideas and creative approaches to meet the challenges. Dennis, my friends, you can count on Germany. We will continue and expand our support for Ukraine. With new contracts, Germany will provide additional support amounting to over 2 billion euros. This will include a Pearl package to totaling $500 million. The package addresses a number of urgent requirements of Ukraine. It provides air defense systems, Patriot interceptors, radar systems, and precision-guided artillery, rockets, and ammunition. Thanks to Pete and our teams for engaging in a tense talk to get this done. Transparency to our taxpayers, which includes fair pricing, remains key to our success. Thank you for doing everything you could do. We will continue to strengthen Ukraine's air defense with new contracts on the delivery of another 2 IRIS-T air defense systems, including a large number of guided missiles as well as shoulder-fired air defense missiles. We will supply high-end anti-tank weapons, communication devices and modern handheld weapons. We will also launch a comprehensive project to modernize weapon systems already delivered to Ukraine and to extend their service lives. This ensures that the weapon systems we supply are adapted to changing battlefield realities and can continue to be used reliably and effectively by Ukraine's armed forces. At the same time, we will continue to expand cooperation between the German and Ukrainian defense industry. We will underscore this intent by concluding a memorandum of understanding on defense industry cooperation, which will be signed by Dennis and me following this UDCG meeting. Support measures like these will only take full effect if they consistently follow Ukraine's requirements and are coordinated with our partners. The UDCG will continue to play a crucial role in this. To ensure that it remains highly relevant, the UDCG needs to adapt. John and I have announced this in the summer. Over the past weeks, we have been working with Dennis and Mark to determine how to align the UDCG and its support architecture. The following is important to us: to strictly align our actions with Ukraine's needs, to have lean and efficient coordination processes, to combine urgent support to Ukraine's armed forces with long-term capability building, and to achieve greater coherence with NATO and its support measures. With these guiding principles, we ensure that Ukraine will receive the support that it needs to regain its freedom and peace and to maintain it in the long term for Ukraine and for Europe. Thank you, and Slava Ukraine.
Thank you, Boris. Thank you all for being here. We meet today as 50 nations in support of Ukraine. Thank you all for being here. We meet today as 50 nations committed to stand by and to support Ukraine. We meet today on what is day 1,329 of President Putin's brutal invasion of Ukraine, a war he thought he would win within a week. But we meet also today in a week which has seen a breakthrough peace plan signed in another terrible war, reminding us that even in the toughest times, that peace is possible. And Secretary Hegseth, I want to praise President Trump's essential leadership in securing that ceasefire in Gaza. That was peace secured through strength. And today, as we shift our focus back to the war in Ukraine, your presence here reminds us of President Trump's commitment also to secure peace in Ukraine. But until peace comes, Ukrainians, military and civilians alike, continue to fight with huge courage. Our determination must match their defiance. Our support must match Putin's escalation. And our role as members of this UDCG is to guarantee Ukraine's strength. In the 8 months since Boris and I jointly took over the leadership of this UDCG, this group has successfully secured pledges worth over £50 billion for military aid capabilities to Ukraine. And from today, as Boris has said, we can announce that the UDCG, that Ukraine and NATO will work even more closely together to respond to the challenge that Dennis issued to us. Ukraine's request to better track, better coordinate, better deliver the support the Ukrainian warfighters need. And thank you, Mark, for your support for this initiative. But as we step up further, we must all deliver faster. This year, the UK is spending the highest ever level on military aid to Ukraine. And I can confirm that in the last 6 months alone, we've delivered over 85,000 drones into Ukraine. We've also signed a new industrial partnership with Ukraine, and that will see us rapidly develop new, improved interceptor drones, which we'll mass produce and then supply back into Ukraine in the thousands. And working with allies from Europe and beyond, the UK is also looking hard at how we support Ukraine through the important new Pearl mechanism. Finally, friends, this war was never about the fate of just one nation. President Putin's aggression is not confined to Ukraine. Drone incursions into Poland, violations of Estonia's airspace, election interference in Moldova. A secure Europe needs a strong Ukraine, and security for all our nations starts in Ukraine. So let's today reaffirm our purpose and our priorities. Support the fight today, secure the peace tomorrow, and stand ready to step up still further. Thank you all for attending this afternoon. With that, can I, on behalf of you all, welcome Dennis to his first in-person UDCG meeting.
Thank you. Dear Boris, dear John, dear Pete, dear Mark, distinguished colleagues, friends, I'm grateful to all of you for being here today again and for staying with Ukraine through every challenge of this long and difficult war. Thank you. This is already the 31st meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, and I thank you for such unity. Ukraine never wanted this war. We want peace, real peace, based on justice and international law. We appreciate all efforts or personal efforts of President Trump to bring Russia to the peace negotiations, but Russia still believes it can gain more influence with bombs. Every night our cities are under attack. That's why we need truly strong global pressure in response to Russia's choice to keep the war going. This brings me to key priorities for 2025 and 2026. Let me focus on the three main pillars: Pearl, Ukrainian-made drones and missiles, as well as extended-range artillery ammunition. And there is one very important issue, long-range missiles, which our partners have. The name of these missiles everyone knows, absolutely widely known. We ask about this too, to increase pressure on Russia economically and through the destroying their military infrastructure. First and foremost, the Pearl initiative. Some of you are already part of it. Thank you for this. It is important that others join too. Pearl for 2025 must be fully implemented. We count on your continued coordination and financing to ensure timely deliveries. Funding needs under the Pearl next year will reach $12 to $20 billion. If needed, we are ready to discuss coordination of this project. The next priority is Ukrainian-made drones and missiles. We needed more FPV, ISR, and other drones to hold the front line. We continue to emphasize and urgent funding needs of $4 billion. In 2026, we will be able to build up to 10 million drones if partners commit the necessary funding. These are cost-efficient, fast, and combat-proven solutions. At the same time, our deep strike drones and missiles help us respond asymmetrically to Russian strikes. And again, I will repeat, we also need to combine our deep strike drones with deep strike missiles from our partners, and I urge about this, and we ask for this type of support. According to our data, the enemy Gaza line deficit now is up to 20% of their needs. There are significant effects from our weapons. Our third priority is to increase our strike depths directly at the front line. We need more extended range artillery rounds. We once again welcome the initiative of joint procurement of artillery ammunition, but to achieve the greatest effects on the battlefield, it should focus on supplying this type of extended range munition. As Russia's air terror continues, we also urgently need additional interceptors this winter, including air defense systems and both surface-to-air and air-launched guided missiles for NASAMS, IRIS-T, and F-16 platforms. In September alone, they launched over 5,600 strike drones and more than 180 missiles, targeting our civilian infrastructure and people. Therefore, on the eve of winter, it is very critical to provide us with necessary equipment to repel such attacks. I would also like to add a few words on our overall defense needs for 2026. We estimate them at $120 billion. Ukraine will cover half, 60 billion, from our national resources. We are asking partners to join us in covering the other half. The most effective path to meet this need is for our European and non-European partners to dedicate no less than 0.25% of their GDP to military support for Ukraine. If the $60 billion target is out of reach for Europe, for non-European partners, then the only remaining solution is a loan backed by frozen Russian assets, so it can be used to fund Ukraine's armed forces and their requirements. Why does this matter for all of us? Because together we are moving toward a new European defense architecture, and Ukraine's army today is the most experienced and capable in Europe. The technologies we are developing now, drones, interceptors, long-range strike systems, will strengthen Europe's resilience for decades. Colleagues, it would be a mistake to believe that peace is already near. The war continues every day.
सारी ब्रेक यहीं पे गुजारनी है क्या?
क्या करूं यार, कुछ अच्छा पीने का दिल है।
मेरा ब्रो है, देख रहा हूँ विटामिन सी वाले पिक करेगा, इम्यूनिटी भी, वाइटैलिटी भी।
फ्रूट की गुडनेस के साथ चाहिए ग्रेट टेस्ट, सो यू नो व्हाट टू पिक।
विटामिन सी, गुडनेस ऑफ फ्रूट्स और ग्रेट टेस्ट। Nestle Fruta Vital. All is well that starts well.
From Nestle. What made you go back to politics?
Putin. I'll be very frank with you. Had Russia not attacked Ukraine, I would not have run for president of Finland. This was built in the 1800s later, when the Tsar took over the palace. And this is mirroring the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg, but it's called the Hall of Mirrors, so we have the mirrors on the side.
So do you ever get used to it, or do you sometimes just walk in and think, wow, this is...
Every morning, wow, this is.
Have a seat. Talk to me about resilience.
It's something I think we in Finland know something about, actually. It's one of our key words. It's sisu, which is resilience, perseverance, grit, stamina. So you never give up. You just have to keep on pushing and grinding through the tough stuff. And I think a lot of Finns have that ingrained into the system, because remember, we're a poor country. You know, first we were under Sweden for 700 years, then under Russia for a little bit over 100. And when we gained independence in 1917, we were basically a poor developing country. And I think then this sort of idea of resilience, let's try to overcome, let's work hard, came very much a part of Finnish DNA. And I think I'm still part of that generation.
Alexander Stubb is the sitting president of Finland, but he's also served as the country's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Prime Minister, and Minister of Finance. On a bigger stage, Stubb was also a member of the European Parliament, and more recently, he found himself nestled as an unlikely diplomatic force between superpowers. President Stubb has US President Trump's ear on issues like the Russian war with Ukraine. In his spare time, Stubb unwinds with exercise, a lot of it. He's also competed in Ironman events and marathons with some pretty impressive results for a non-pro athlete.
helvetin säärikarvat hidastaa, että muuten me oltais menty kovempaa.
I want to ask about your father. He was someone that had a huge influence on your life. What was he like?
Yeah, definitely. Still is. He's 90 years old. He was the chief talent scout of the National Hockey League in Europe. So very much an ice hockey family, if you will. My dad was a big influence in the sense that he taught me a lot of things. He's always taught me curiosity. He's tried to teach me patience.
So you're naturally curious, but not naturally patient.
Yeah, I think that's what my wife would probably say. I was very much into sports when I was a kid. First I wanted to become a professional ice hockey player, but my dad probably saw that, it's not going to work with that one. Then I wanted to become a professional golfer. That's why I actually went to study in the States. And my sort of mission or academic life or meaning, purpose, only started pretty much at the age of 21. I mean, before that, I lived in a teenage abyss, I guess, in many ways. And if you had asked my friends in high school or elsewhere that, will Alex go into politics or will he become president, they would have probably laughed.
What was your hardest time?
One of the tough times, to be very frank with you, was when my mother was diagnosed with epilepsy when I was only 10, 11 years old. I was the first one to see my mom with a seizure, so that gives you a different picture of, your parent in one way or another. But probably the toughest time in my life, and it's only my own doing, was from 2014 to 2016 when I was Prime Minister and Finance Minister and Chairman of the party. Probably not in my comfort zone because domestic politics was never my thing. But I, grinded it out for 2 years, and when I lost an election, I left politics. But I left sort of, with a high morale to a certain extent, lessons learned, and my whole idea was, okay, the time was tough. I learned something from it, and I'll never come back to politics. And here I am.
I was going to say, and then 7 years later, here we are.
With Russia, I realized that, wow, things might happen, and I felt that sense of duty, but we talked about it at home, my wife, and because we had decided that we're not going to do politics. And she said, well, perhaps because the security political situation is what it is, you should reconsider.
Мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции.
This is Putin announcing Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022.
Кто бы ни пытался помешать нам, а тем более создать угрозы для нашей страны, для нашего народа, должны знать, что ответ России будет незамедлительным и приведет вас к таким последствиям, с которыми вы в своей истории еще никогда не сталкивались.
This war is a continuation of conflicts exploited by Russia.
Heavily armed, wearing camouflage uniforms of a kind known to be issued to the Russian military, a platoon of troops deployed this morning around the main airport in Crimea.
Finland shares a 1,340-kilometer border with Russia. They've been investing in their defense forces for years. April 4, 2023. Finland officially joined NATO.
If and when the alliance defines its number one security threat as being Russia, we in Finland fully realize our responsibility. So my message to all of our allies here today is that you can trust us.
Where do you see Russia going?
Oh, it's not looking good. I'm very honest with you. With the current regime and with President Putin, I don't see big change. Nations that don't have a capacity to deal with their past, they have a very difficult time to look into the future.
The world marvels as tiny Finland halts and holds the giant invader. Soviets may command the sky of Finland, but the invader will meet resistance on Finnish soil.
There is this, imperialist DNA and undertone in Russia, which doesn't seem to go away. Russia is built on empire. That's why Putin talks about the Ruski Mir, Great Russia borders to the 1800s, which has, one language, one Russia, one religion, and one leader himself. So I'm not very hopeful about the future of Russia right now. We thought that Russia and many other countries in this world would just automatically revert to some form of liberal democracy, but it didn't happen. For some people who don't know the Finnish model, the president runs foreign policy together with the government. And I'm the only living person who has been in Finland, who's been both prime minister and president and foreign minister. So I understand the reality. When you're president and dealing with foreign